Hello, and welcome to the Office for Justice Program's Territories Financial Support Center short video presentation on fraud prevention. In this video, we will highlight your primary responsibilities as a grantee in preventing the misuse of award funds so you can effectively manage your grant award and use the funds as they were intended. So why is prevention of fraud important? The U.S. Department of Justice awards federal grant funds to recipients for specific purposes and requires them to use those funds within established guidelines. Therefore, every dollar you receive as a grantee must be supported by sufficient evidence that the expense is allowable, allocable, and reasonable. Unless you are vigilant in early detection and prevention, your federal award is susceptible to misuse. Don't make the mistake in believing that fraud can never happen in your agency. It can. And when it does, it may or can result in suspension or becoming not eligible for receiving future federal funding, being held responsible for the administrative recovery of the funds, a civil lawsuit, or even a criminal prosecution. These actions and consequences are severe. Fortunately, there are measures you and your team can take to prevent or reduce the risks of fraud, waste, and misuse. Now let's talk about fraud, which occurs when award recipients attempt to deceive the government about their spending of award money. There are three common types of fraud. The first type is conflict of interest, which can happen when a vendor inappropriately participates in the procurement process or an employee of the recipient organization personally benefits from the contract award. There are also making false statements about the use of the award funds. This can happen when grantees unilaterally redirect funds for a use other than what they are intended for and are not able to document and prove that all grant drawdowns were for allowable, allocable, and reasonable expenses. Then finally, we have theft, which is oftentimes the most common type of fraud in organizations. Theft schemes are often perpetrated by very intelligent and creative individuals who take advantage of the fact that no one will suspect them of wrongdoing. One key strategy in preventing or mitigating risks of fraud is early detection. Your ability to recognize warning signs that misuse is taking place is critical to your success in managing your award. For example, evidence has shown that perpetrators of theft or fraud usually display warning signs and behavioral red flags well before committing the fraudulent act. One study showed that almost 44% of cases reported employees who committed fraud demonstrated living beyond their means. This includes taking extravagant vacations, living in luxurious homes, driving expensive vehicles, and generally spending more than would be expected based on their normal salaries. In 33% of cases, the employee was experiencing financial difficulties, which can often lead to desperate choices and provide the incentives to justify fraudulent and criminal behavior. Other signs include having unusually close relationships with vendors. Be on the lookout for such behaviors. In addition to paying attention to behavioral red flags, there are several prevention strategies you can take to reduce or even eliminate the risk of fraudulent use of your federal award. I want to highlight a few right here. Internal controls, separation of duties. First, you can examine current operations and internal controls to identify fraud vulnerabilities. As a result of this examination, you can strengthen your system of internal controls and test it thoroughly to ensure the vulnerabilities have been resolved. Implementing separation of duties is one key component of the strong system of internal controls. Supervisory review and approval. Supervisors in your agency must oversee, review, and approve where necessary the work and activities of their employees. They should understand the key internal controls set in place to prevent misuse specific to the job functions they oversee and ensure these controls are operating effectively at all times. Adequate monitoring. You can implement adequate monitoring by educating others about the risks of fraud. The more people are aware of the issues, the more they can help prevent problems or detect them as early as possible. Grant fraud can only be stopped with the help of everyone across your agency. The front line of defense against fraudulent behavior in your organization includes accountants, auditors, and other award recipient personnel. Consistent documentation. You can ensure all financial or other certifications and progress reports are adequately supported with the appropriate documentation and evidence. Secure and safeguard assets. Access to assets and records should be limited to authorized individuals. Accountability for custody and use of resources should also be assigned and tracked. Reconciliation and review. Reconciliation and review should be done on a timely basis. At a minimum, just having your employees know that you are reviewing bank reconciliations in a timely and consistent manner may help prevent fraud. Procurement. You must also follow a fair and transparent procurement process, especially when using consultants. Ensure that the rate of pay is reasonable and justifiable, and that the work product is well defined and documented. Formal written policies. Make sure your organization develops and implements formal written policies for the following. The list includes but is not limited to the following: cash disbursements, attendance and leave, expense and travel reimbursements, use of agency assets, purchasing guidelines, petty cash, and conflicts of interest. Disclosure. Finally, when you do identify fraud, theft, or misuse, it is critical that you disclose in writing and in a timely manner that the federal awarding agency or pass-through entity all violations of federal criminal law involving fraud, bribery, or gratuity violations potentially affecting your award. The federal grant process is an integrity-based system, which means that you are to act responsibly and honestly when using and reporting on the use of federal funds. Just because no one from the federal government tells you that something is done incorrectly, it does not mean that you are necessarily in compliance. By employing an integrity-based approach, you elevate honesty and integrity as core business principles, which then becomes a core part of your agency's mission and standard for all employees to conduct themselves. On behalf of the OJP Territories Financial Support Center, I want to thank you for listening. And I hope this video was helpful as you assess your capacity to prevent fraud. Please visit our website at www.ojp.gov/TFSC for additional resources, or contact us at ojptfsc@usdoj.gov if we can be of any further assistance. If you would like to stay up to date on our videos, click the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.